Hello and welcome to part 2 video of our RDS. So let's understand, why do you want a managed RD service? So there are some important things. Most important part you have to have is the time and the efficiency. RDS takes care of all this. See, it takes over many of the difficulty or tedious management task of relational database. First. Next, when you buy a server, you get CPU, memory, storage, IOPS all bundled. That means they are not customized. In point 3, Amazon RDS, you can go for whatever your requirement or whatever requirements are, whatever the needs are. So you can scale them independently. If you need more CPU, less IOPS or more storage, you can easily allocate them according to the parameters that you set. Whatever your requirements are, subject to requirement, you can set up and whatever your needs are. So there are some of the major tasks which are taken care of, which are very important in real-time scenarios or when the large enterprises are running some critical applications. It manages backups, software patching, automatic failure detection and recovery. Next, to deliver a managed service experience, Amazon RDS doesn't provide shell access to DB instances. It also restricts access to certain system procedures and tables that require advanced privilege. You can have automated backups performed when you need them, or manually create your own backup snapshots. Snapshots are very important in case if you're unable to trace the data, if something happens to the data, through snapshot you can recreate your data. Okay, next, you can get high availability with primary instance and a synchronous secondary instance that you can fail over to when problem occurs. You can also use MySQL, MariaDB, Postgre, read replicas to increase the read scaling, which is a very important factor. When your read scaling increases, so it can manage even that flexibility. That's what the concept of elasticity is here. Each DB engine has its own supported features, and each version of a DB engine may include specific features. Additionally, each DB engine has a set of parameters in DB parameter group that controls the behavior of a. In the earlier session we saw standard create, we chose, then MySQL, and we chose the MySQL community, and in template we chose production. Now let's look at this setting, a DB instance identifier. If you need any kind of info about it, you just got to click here. Towards the right, it displays, you can see this DB instance identifier. Specify a name that is unique for all DB instances owned by your own account. Okay, DB instance identifier. When you allocate a name, you got to be very careful that in case, see here, instance identifier is case sensitive, but stores as all lower cases. So here I can give my DB instance identifier name. Try a name for your DB instance. The name must be unique across all DB instances. So I would go for, say right now, my database instance. This would be the name I'm going to take. So what is master username? So again, you need some info, you can just click. Specify an alphanumeric string that defines the login ID for the master user. You use the master user login to start defining all users, objects and permissions in the DB of your instance. Okay, so I would go for, okay, admin. I'm fine with admin. Okay, there's another option. Either you can allocate a password or take an auto generated. So to start with, always whenever you are going to learn anything, please use manual. Don't go for generated or auto generated thing. So I would like to give a allocate a password. Okay, next step is I got to confirm the password. So I'm going to use the password that I've given there. All right. So this is my password confirmation. So this part is also done. Now out here, you need to choose the instance type. If you see my earlier videos in which we have spoken about type of instances, out there you get all the information. So choose a DB instance class that meets your processing power and memory requirement. The DB instance class options below are limited to those supported by engines you need to select above. So if there is standard create, you have different options out here. You got to click here and choose. You have DB2, M5 large or X large. All these are different options that you get in standard class. Next is memory, includes R and S class. So if you click here, you get only R and S class, in the sense db.r5 R. Okay, then look at this. Here it starts with R. Okay, R5, then 24 extra large and all these. These are many options that you have. Burstable, we can go ahead with burstable as of now, and db.2.micro, which is a free option. Now coming to the storage part, out here you see SSD, solid state drives, or you can say flash drives, which are best for read write purpose, or the IOPS that you see. IOPS means input output per second, which is read and write. That's best for your SSDs which you choose. Then you have an option out here. What is the limit? If you see out here, 100 GB and maximum 16384 GB, that's up to say 16 TB. Okay, this is the option you have. Minimum 100 and maximum 1634 GB. Next, provision IOPS, you can go for anything, whatever your requirement is. So I would like to go for 100 GB I allocate here. Okay, the allocated space, this one. Then I go for IOPS, which is 1000 IOPS. That's more than sufficient for my requirement. Okay, then enable auto scaling. Okay, storage auto scaling. It's an important feature in real time, or even if you're practicing, you need to enable storage auto scaling to understand how data scales up and how data scales in. You can say scale in and scale out. When the requirement swells up, it will manage. When a requirement decreases, it manages that too. Okay, maximum storage threshold, that's the limit. Out here, choose the maximum storage threshold required by planned workload of your database instance. Please plan. You need to understand what is the requirement. Simply you cannot allocate, otherwise it will incur heavy cost. You got to be very careful. So maximum storage threshold is 1000. Okay, I'm going in for 1000 GB. Okay, this is done. Now out here, multi availability zone deployment. You have an option. Okay, you can create a standby instance recommended for production usage. Creates a standby in different availability zone to provide data redundancy, eliminates IO freezes and minimize latency spike during system backup. So you can have this in case something happens to A zone or B zone example. So they will take care of your availability. It ensures that there are no disturbance or drop. So as of now, for my practice, I'll say do not create a standby instance. Next part is connectivity. When you say connectivity, it is network. Under network, we have VPC, which is called as virtual private cloud. Out here you can see networking environment for this DB instance. Only VPC with corresponding DB subnet group are listed. Okay, VPC is virtual private cloud, where you park all your resources. If you're going to launch an instance, it will be within this particular VPC. So we can create a new VPC or use the default one. So as of now, I'm going ahead with this VPC, which is virtual private cloud. Okay, then there are some additional configurations. Okay, if you want to know more about VPC, you can refer my videos about VPC. Out here you have a subnet group. Either the moment you create a subnet group, you can see the list out here, or you can choose a default one. So as of now, for this, let's go ahead with default. Okay, accessibility, I would like to go for public accessibility. yes. If you see out here, select yes if you want instances and devices outside of the VPC hosted the DB instances to connect the DB instances. If you select no, you don't assign a public IP address to the instance. So let's go ahead with yes, and it's asking me which VPC. So if there are which subnet. So in case if there are any other VPC security groups, fine. So let's go ahead with default. So you can choose the default one. Let's talk about the availability zones. You have an option. Either you choose AP South. AP is Asia Pacific South 1A, Asia Pacific South 1B. You can choose or give no preference. So I don't need a preference as of now. Next, the TCP/IP part, that is database. Okay, ports are very important. Specify the TCP/IP port that the database instance will use for app connection. The connection string of any application connecting to the DB instance must specify the port number of the DB instance. Both the security group applied to the DB instance and your company's firewall must allow connection to the port. So let's go with 3306. So this is the end of our second session. So please go through the next session where we continue about RDS. Thank you very much.